it's ready for a very long wrap up. Hi, I'm Colleen. If you're new here, I talk about books and writing. Today, we're going to talk about all the books I read in July and August. I usually do a monthly wrap up, but over the summer I did a, bi-monthly wrap up? That I think means twice a month. I'm not sure. An every other month wrap up. And so I have quite a few books to talk about in lots of different genres. And if you like this video, please hang out, like, subscribe, comment, do all those great things. Before we start, really quickly, I have a new book coming out on September 23rd called Hauntings and House Witchery. It's a paranormal romance about a witch, her soulmate, who she has basically been keeping at arm's length for 9 years, and the prophecy/curse that's going to bring them together. All right, what should we start with? I have my books all organized into piles. I also feel like I've been filming in here a lot more because when I have these large wrap-ups, I need this is our table where we eat our dinner, and I need the space. So I've got romance, historical fiction, thrillers, book of the month, which is a little like cobbled together because all three of them are different genres. And then I have my other category. Let's start with other. This will also get out of the way, the only book I have that I got from the library, so I had to put a post-it so I wouldn't forget to talk about it. So I read the book Stepping Stones by Lucy Nisley, which is a middle grade graphic novel. And I read it because my oldest hates summer reading more than anything. And this year they could pick any book. And we had both read the other book in this series, which is called Apple Crush, last year, and both enjoyed it. And so I saw Stepping Stones, which is actually the first in the series, at the library, grabbed it. He read it, I read it, we talked about it. He just turned his project on it a couple days ago. It's a very sweet middle grade graphic novel about a kid whose mom and dad are divorced and moves from the city to the country with mom and mom's new boyfriend. And this book follows how mom's new boyfriend has 2 kids and what this step sibling situation starts to look like. And it was really sweet. If you have a middle grader in your life, or if you just want to have like a couple hours where you fall into this very bucolic, like farmer's market world, I recommend it. My next book in the other situation is Dreamwork by Mary Oliver, which is a poetry collection. This has so many really good poems in it. I bought it because Wild Geese is in it, and I really wanted to own Wild Geese. This is immediately my favorite poetry collection. It has dethroned my Emily Dickinson one I have. You can tell that so much thought went into picking which poems are in this book together because they really played off each other. And I also have a new favorite Mary Oliver after reading this. It's called The Journey, which I'm sure a lot of people had heard of before, but I had not heard of it before. And literally I read it and finished it and then read it again and was just blown away. And then I think I read it like 5 times since I read it in the book. I just keep picking it up and reading it over and over again. It's so beautiful. Now I kind of want to just read it again. I'm not going to read the whole thing out loud because I feel like copyright issues will have a problem with that. But The Journey by Mary Oliver. Read that poem. It's really, really gorgeous. And this is such a good little collection. Next, let's do historical fiction because I only have 2 in that category. And they were 2 books I was pretty highly anticipating, and I had 2 pretty different reactions to them. So the first was Summer of '69 by Ellen Hildebrand. I like to read one Ellen Hildebrand in summer, and the last couple summers I've been reading her new release, but she didn't have a new Nantucket book this summer. She has a autumnal academia book that's just came out that I haven't read yet called The Academy that she co-wrote with her daughter. But so I have a stash of Ellen Hildebrand books in my TBR that are for June now that I have to make my way through her backlist. And the fun thing is, this is my favorite backlist Ellen Hildebrand I've definitely ever read. And this is my second favorite Ellen Hildebrand of all time. So much like the title explains, it's 1969, you're on Nantucket. So instead of it being a contemporary fiction, it is a historical fiction. So you're following the Luven family, and they have multiple children, And there's also the mom and the dad and the grandma. And so you kind of jump between everybody's POVs during it. You have 3 sisters and 1 brother. And the one brother, whose name is Tiger, has been deployed to Vietnam. So his chapters are about like being in the Vietnam War. And so those were very sad. And if you can't read about the Vietnam War, it's a big part of this book, not just his chapters about being there, but how the rest of the family feels with him being gone, specifically the mother, which was heartbreaking to read. The 3 sisters are Blair, Kirby, and Jessie. Blair is living in Boston, and she's pregnant with twins, which I love because I have twins. And so she's not coming to Nantucket for the summer. She's going to stay in the city. And then Kirby is trying to like distance herself from her family. So she gets a job on Martha's Vineyard and is working in a hotel there. And then the youngest is Jessie. And at first I was like annoyed that there was going to be a 13-year-old narrator because I was kind of like, oh, I'm not going to like this as much. Her perspective of everything that happens this summer with their family was phenomenal. I loved it. This book was really good. I mean, it's a big, thick one. I flew through it. I couldn't put it down. It actually made me a little surprised that Ellen Hildebrand hasn't written more like historical set in Nantucket, because she also really got, in my opinion, I've obviously never been to Nantucket in 1969. I was not alive then. But she really got like the setting and the place felt very correct. Like when reading it, it felt very immersive in it. I also did not know this is my sister-in-law's favorite book of all time. And she just randomly asked me what I was reading. And I said, I just finished this. And she was like, that's my favorite book of all time. And I believe it. It's a really, really good book. If you want historical fiction, if you like Ellen Hildebrand's voice, definitely try this one. The other historical fiction I read was Husbands and Lovers by Beatrice Williams, which this is kind of an interesting book because 50% of the book is not historical and 50% is. So let me just give you like a quick rundown on it. Part of the book is in 2022, and our main character narrator is Mallory. And she is a single mom of a kid who's like 12-ish, and he accidentally ingests a poisonous mushroom while at sleepaway camp, and it is really bad. Like he goes into organ failure. He does not die, he survives, but he has to be on dialysis. Mallory has never told anyone who the father of her child is. Okay, so her sister at this point kind of needles her into being like, you need to talk to him, because the sister thinks she knows who the father is. And she's like, you have to go talk to him because he could be a kidney match. Mallory is not a kidney match for her son. Neither is her sister. So then that part of the story kind of takes off. The other part of the story is Egypt, Cairo, 1951, post-World War II, about a Hungarian refugee named Hannah who is married to a wealthy British aristocrat who's kind of like not doing great things in Egypt post-World War II. That's the setup of that story. So that part of the book ended up not being just about Egypt in the 1950s. A lot of that part of the book is about World War II and even before World War II, and about like the time period from 1945 to 1951, everything Hannah went through in those 6 years. This book was a little bit of a letdown for me. I was really excited to read a Beatrice Williams. Here's one of the problems. I don't really like World War II fiction. I just don't. I think I just read too much of it, and like this book has a lot of World War II in it and a lot of like the absolute horrors of World War II. I'm just going to give this as a content warning. Absolutely awful things happened to Hannah. Like the worst things you can imagine happened to Hannah. It's awful. And I didn't go into this book thinking that that's the type of book I was reading. So we'll start with that. I was really hoping more for like 1950s Egypt and what was going on there, and not like the atrocities of horrible things that happened to World War II. The other issue I have with this book is I didn't really feel like the two plot lines connected. Like they are connected, but I didn't think that them both being in this book added anything to either story. And so honestly, I think this would have been better as like 2 different stories, because they're both compelling in their own right, but you've got a little bit of like a jolt when you've switched time periods, because it was kind of like, oh, okay. And then also in the 2022 plotline, you also have some stuff going on in, is it 2010, whenever, the summer that she conceived her son, whenever that was, 2009 or 2010. And so you're in a lot of different years, and it kind of felt like too many years, just in my opinion. So I don't think I'll read another Beatrice Williams. I'm glad I did read it because I've always kind of been like curious if I would love her, but I just didn't it wasn't the right one. And maybe there's a different one I would have liked better, but this is the one I picked first. Let's switch over to thrillers first. And we're going to start with Writers and Liars by Carol Goodman. If you follow this channel, you know that Carol Goodman is one of my favorite mystery writers. So she's an auto buy for me. I always do no buy July, and she usually releases a book in July. So I always pre-order that in about May. So technically I didn't buy it in July. The majority of her books take place in upstate New York or New England in the US. But then every once in a while she'll have a book that takes place someplace else. This is one of those. So we are in Greece. We're on a Greek island, and our narrator is Maya, who was accepted into this very prestigious writing retreat run by this man named Argos Alexander a long time ago. She was in her 20s, and she's definitely in like her later 30s now. I'm trying to see, 15 years ago. And so she went on this great writing retreat, and she wrote this amazing book that did really well, and then she's never written another book. And she's like been trying to write her sophomore novel for probably like 13 years. At the beginning, you know that something happened there that she's still mad about between her best friend and her boyfriend at the time. And you get kind of like snippets of memories. She gets invited to come back to this island and go to another retreat, and her ex-best friend and ex-boyfriend are also invited. So it's kind of like everybody who was there that summer got re-invited to come back to the retreat. And Maya goes kind of because she's feeling like competitive with her ex-friend and boyfriend. And it's like, if they're gonna go, I'm gonna go. And so she shows up. Okay, so that's the setup. For me, this one fell, I don't wanna say flat, because it was a perfectly good thriller, but it wasn't like what I get out of a Carol Goodman thriller, if that makes sense. I do feel like the last two I've read haven't been my favorites, which was kind of a bummer after I thought she had a really good run. I really love The Disinvited Guest. I really like The Stranger, it's either beside you, beneath you, behind you, The Stranger Behind You. And The Sea of Lost Girls is my favorite Carol Goodman book ever, but this one didn't have like the same magic as I found with some other titles. Still a good thriller, just not that like great category that I usually find Carol Goodman in. My next thriller is The Vanishing Hour by Serafina Nova Glass. I grabbed this one at Half Price Books when I did my big book haul in May because I like the cover and I like the blurb. So let me tell you about it. We have more than one narrator. So we have Grace, who is a recluse who runs a B&B, but it's the off season. And she was kidnapped, terribly assaulted, but then escaped when she was a teenager. And the person who kidnapped her has never been found. Our next narrator is a woman named Kira, and she's currently looking for her daughter who is missing and is convinced that whoever took her daughter is connected to this string of some missing, some murdered girls that includes Grace. Our third narrator is Aiden, and it takes a little while to figure out how Aiden actually fits into it all, but Aiden comes back to this town where he grew up because his father is missing. And his mother starts to panic because another man his father's age, who's elderly, he's in his 70s, went missing and then was found dead. And so you see how these cases all get kind of intertwined together. There are also chapters every once in a while by an unnamed narrator who is trapped somewhere and is trying to figure out how to get out. I thought this was a solid thriller. I read it very quickly. It was fast-paced. I liked the mystery. I thought the ending, like the main ending was good. The absolute end of the novel I did not like for reasons that are too spoilery for me to give away, but it was just a personal preference as to how one little loose end got tied up. But I think if you're looking for a thriller and you don't mind things that are a little bit dark, because this is a pretty dark thriller, some pretty bad things are happening to these girls when they are kidnapped. And there's an insane detail, but there is some detail. So I would just keep that in mind. Great sense of unease while reading it. Great sense of isolation with Grace working at this B&B when it's the off season, there really aren't people there. So overall, I enjoyed it. Are you ready for a really weird book? So the last thriller I read was The Last Session by Julia Bartz. Julia Bartz wrote The Writing Retreat, which a couple years ago, that was my best thriller of the year when I do like my best of books. And I really loved that one. And so when I saw this had come out, I didn't even know this had come out. And I saw it during my big May book haul and just had to buy it. And I read it pretty recently. I finished it under 2 weeks ago. Let's talk about this bizarre book. So it starts very normal. We're in New York, and this woman named Thea is a social worker, and she works with patients in this mental institution, and she does a lot of art therapy. And this woman comes in, and she's completely catatonic. And Thea recognizes her because she's an actress from a while ago, but she was in Thea's favorite movie, and Thea always told her that they looked alike. And so Thea knows who she is right away, but isn't sure what to do about it. And then the woman attacks Thea. So things happen, which would be spoilery to tell you. And Thea ends up going to try to find this woman in New Mexico at this crazy couples retreat. It's not even like a couples retreat. It's like a love retreat. Like, find out why you aren't finding love. Okay. That setup seems pretty normal. This is not a normal book. So once you get to New Mexico, the book goes off the rails a little bit. It's like past lives, spaceships, ancient Egypt, weird symbols, the earth opening and swallowing people whole. So I thought this was pretty good. I think I gave it 4 stars. Like, for me, I enjoyed it. It was kind of crazy. I'll be honest though, I read some of the reviews beforehand. So I knew that this wasn't going to be a run-of-the-mill thriller where you're just like before I read any reviews, I thought, okay, this is going to be like a cult thriller. Like, there's going to be some weird cult stuff going on in the desert. And there is. But I didn't expect it to swing this crazy, and it swings nuts. A lot of people on Goodreads didn't enjoy it. I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was a good read. You have to go in knowing it's more like crazy, bizarre book than thriller. I didn't really feel like the thriller portion of it is what was bringing me back in to read it. It was more like the insane stuff going on. But it did also confirm why I super dislike the desert and don't like being there. Now we're on to romance. All we have left is romance and book of the month. We are trucking along. So the first romance we're going to talk about is Highland Treasure by Lindsay Sands. I don't know what number this is, but we're in the Highland Bride series. And you know what? This was as fun as they always are. This is about Rory Buchanan, who is the healer brother, who I always talk about as like the modern medical doctor in medieval times who can figure out how to heal anybody of anything. And he is asked by like a family friend to escort this woman someplace. I don't remember where she's going. Someplace in Scotland. And she is like basically completely veiled. Like, you can't see her at all. So our heroine's name is, I'm looking at it right now, Elisande. It's Elysande. De Valence. And her story is kind of like you have to uncover it. But basically she's covered in a veil because someone beat the absolute crap out of her. And she's healing. And she can like barely move her body while she's on the horse. And so the book goes from there. What happened to her? What happened to her family? And obviously Rory is a great healer. So when he finds out that she's injured, he's going to take great care of it. It's very much like a hurt comfort book. And it's got all the great Lindsay Sands stuff you would imagine. Attempted murders, having sex when you are definitely not healed enough to be. It's like one of the main things I always think about when I read these. It's like, oh, you got stabbed, or you got an arrow through the chest, or you had a horrible head injury everyone's going to die from. And the moment you wake up, it's like, let's hop in the sack. But you know what? That's what makes them fun. So I really enjoyed this. I've been enjoying this entire series. I own one more that's upstairs on my TBR for next month. And then I think I only have 2 more left to go in the series. So I'm probably going to wrap these up by January. A little sad. The next romance I read is Soul of the Witch by Deanna Chase. This is obviously a paranormal romance. I bought this, I think last Christmas is when I got it, mainly because I thought it might be a good comp for my series, The Witches of Star Island. This book takes place in Keating Hollow, which is like a magical town, and our main character is Abby. She's left for a long time because she did this potion and it backfired. And then when she's there, she kind of like reacquaints herself with her ex-boyfriend, who she was like totally in love with in high school. Here are my feelings about this book. Look at the cover. It's like sexy legs, right? It's like dark and sultry. In like chapter 3, Abby's like bringing her suitcase in, and a pair of lacy red underwear falls out of her suitcase, and the hero like picks it up and puts it in his pocket to like save for later, to give back to her. He doesn't like steal it. This book ends with a kiss. And so I thought that was kind of like unfair marketing, if I'm going to be honest. I think you look at that cover and you think this is going to be like a little bit more sultry, a little bit more spicy. Definitely when you start with red lacy underwear falling out. I mean, it's not like they don't do it for rom-com value. It's not like her granny panties fell out and he's like, oh my God, granny panties. It's like sexy underwear. He starts thinking about her in a sexy way. And then there is no sexy times in this book. So 1, not a comp for my books. And 2, I didn't really like that. I mean, it was like a Hallmark witch book, which is great and fun if you're in the mood for that, which is not what I thought I was getting into with this. All right, I finally read an Emily Henry book. Funny Story was the one I decided to start with. And let's see whether or not I'm gonna read another one. So the premise of this one is we have Daphne and we have Miles, and they are living together because Daphne's fiance Peter and Miles' girlfriend Petra, who were childhood best friends, left them both to be with each other. Daphne finds herself like basically her ex and his new girlfriend go on her honeymoon and give her the week to move out of their house because he bought it. And she's like, I don't know what to do. And she's a children's librarian and she has a large summer reading program event coming up, and she doesn't want to ditch and like move back with her mom because she's living in Michigan and her mom lives, I think, in New Jersey. So she basically goes to Miles and is like, do you need a roommate? And he lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. And he's like, yep. And so it starts very much where you're in like, Daphne's in like the depths of despair because she can't believe this happened to her. And Miles is always stoned. And that's kind of their thing. Now, throughout the story, obviously, this is going to be like a roommates to lovers situation where they start having like a fake relationship also to try and make Peter and Petra jealous. Things kind of go from there. Things I liked about this book. They both have a lot of other crap going on in their lives. Like Miles has a lot of weird stuff with his family, and so does Daphne, specifically with like feeling abandoned by her father, and she works through a lot of that. Miles' sister, who's kind of all over the place, comes and lives with him for a little while. Fine. I didn't actually like this book, which I feel guilty about saying because I know a lot of people really love Emily Henry, but I'm also not super surprised because I tend not to really like rom-com-y, super popular books. So I'm not that surprised that I didn't like it, but I did really want to give it a try. And I did. I gave it a try. For me, it was like a 3-star read, which normally romance I put quite a bit higher than that. I think that if you like the rom-com, you like the fake relationship in modern times, which is not my favorite trope, that you'd probably like this. A lot of the time, I was just kind of like annoyed at characters and the decisions they made. And I felt also like some of the stuff was pretty unrealistic that was happening, which obviously it's a book. It doesn't have to be unrealistic. It's okay. Emily Henry's going to do fine. I'm sure she has like a 13-book deal with, who's her publisher? Berkeley. Now, in May, I bought 3 really popular romance authors, which I don't usually do. So I got Emily Henry, I got a Carly Fortune, which I read in June, I think, or even May. And then I got an Annabelle Monaghan. I got summer romance. So this has a solitary narrator. Her name is Allie. She's a recently divorced, but like not actually divorced yet. She's going through a divorce, mom of 3, and she's in her late 30s, and she's kind of like had the worst 2 years of her life. So 2 years ago, her mom died. A year ago, her husband left her, and she's just trying to like tread water. The book starts and she decides like she's got to fix her life. She puts on real pants and goes out and like immediately gets hit on by this guy named Ethan at the dog park. And he's like really nice and like handsome and like he's into her, and she can't really figure out why he's into her. And then they go on a date, and the whole time she's kind of like looking at him like, who is this? And he doesn't say anything. And then later she realizes that he's the younger brother of her literal best friend, and he moved away. And she never called him Ethan, though. They always called him Scooter when he was a kid. So she's like, doesn't put it together that it's him. She hasn't seen him in like 15 years, I want to say. It's been a long time. So I did sort of buy her not recognizing him because, you know, I think he has a beard now. He was like kind of a screw up kid, like a big skater boy. And so I did sort of buy that she wouldn't recognize him. I don't know. Part of me was like, would her best friend's parents, who she's really close with, I feel like they would have sent a Christmas card, but maybe they didn't put a picture in it. This book is partially about her romance with Ethan, but it's also about her getting her life back in her late 30s and figuring out what the rest of her life's going to look like. I really enjoyed this book, which I was surprised because I didn't like the Carly Fortune one and I didn't really like the Emily Henry one, but I really enjoyed this Annabelle Monaghan to the point that I'll read another one. I liked how she balanced the romance with the like the contemporary fiction side of it, to the point that if this had a different title and a different cover, you totally could have billed it as a contemporary fiction, not a contemporary romance. And I think I liked how well she balanced it. I don't necessarily think a lot of books like that are great, like that they balance it well, but Annabelle Monaghan did a really good job. I think she'll become one of those authors who I read like one of her books in June every year or July. Like it's a summer book that I enjoy. I liked it. Now let's talk about book of the month. We're going to talk about 3 books of the month. And we're going to talk about one that I did officially DNF. So I usually let myself DNF 1 book of the month a year, sometimes 2. Often, if it's like last year, I remember that book Shelterwood. I did not want to finish that book, but I had just DNF'd Honey. And so I literally was like, I'm going to power skim this book. And I did. I could not power skim this book. And I'm a little sad because 1, I bought this book because I thought this was going to be like the book of the summer, because there was a lot of hype. And I thought it was going to be like Out of the Woods last year, where like everyone was asking me if I had read it and all my neighbors wanted to talk about it. And like, I remember my book club was like, should we do this? And I was like, it's like really long and really sad and about like missing children. And 3 of the women in my group were like, absolutely not. And I'm like, kind of like a lot of people don't want to read about missing children. So I bought this book thinking it was the book of summer. It was not. And I had to DNF it. And it was The Bombshell by Darrow Farr. This book started really promising. So I DNF'd it on page 218 and it is 406 pages long. So I read more than half. So I feel okay about like giving you a review. Obviously it's not a full review because a lot of people on Goodreads said that they didn't love the book, but that they really liked, there's a huge time jump to 2013 in the end, and that they liked the time jump, which I should probably just read that, but I'm kind of over it. So we start in 1993. We are in Corsica, which is an island that is part of France, but it's like between France and Italy. If you know where Sardinia, it's right next to Sardinia. And it's the 90s, and there's a little bit of like a cultural revolution trying to happen there. So the native Corsicans are basically like, we want France out of here. We don't like the French politicians, etc. The book starts with our main character, Severine. She's 17-ish, and she is like a little bit of like a wily 17-year-old. Like the book starts with her just like talking about how she likes to control guys by having sex with them, which I didn't love from the 17-year-old. And she gets kidnapped by this freedom fighter movement. She doesn't get like tortured by them or anything, but she's very worried about the fact that she's a girl who got kidnapped, because the last person they kidnapped was a boy and they let him go after 24 hours. But she's like, these are all young guys in this group. Where this book fell off the rails for me is I understand this book is about Stockholm Syndrome. I did not like the fact that she's 17 and the person that there's like a bunch of guys who she makes out with who are in this group. Maybe not a bunch, maybe 2 or 3. But the person she ends up like falling in love with and having a sexual relationship is 25, and he's educating her, like he's giving like her assignments. So it's almost like a teacher-student relationship, because he's making her like read all this philosophy and take notes on it. And honestly, part of me was like, oh my God, because like I didn't major in philosophy. I minored in philosophy in college. And so I've read a lot of the stuff they were talking about, and I didn't like the fact that he's like, I'm educating you on the way the world is, and you're also going to fall in love with me, and we're going to sleep together, even though I'm 7 years older than you. And they all like look at her as kind of this like magical creature. So I just couldn't get into it. I literally got to page, I don't know what it was, like 200, and was like, I think I'm going to DNF this book. And then I told myself, give it a little longer. And so I read 18 more pages. And then I was like, I have to stop. I can't get into it. I understand a lot of people wouldn't be bothered by that kind of relationship. It really bothered me, which was too bad, because I thought the first 50 pages of this, before any of that like weird sexual stuff starts happening, or like beyond sexual, like romantic stuff starts happening, I actually liked it. But Severine is a hard main character. She's like a very unlikable narrator. You don't really feel like you're rooting for this group because they're all kind of not that likable. And I don't know. I also didn't really know anything about this revolution. I don't even know if you call it a revolution. This time period in Corsican history. So that might have been part of why I didn't really gel with it. But it was a miss for me, sadly. I'm looking at the books I have left and realizing I probably should have structured this differently because we're going to end on kind of low notes. Oh, wow. Next, I read Ninth House by Lee Bardugo. And it was my first Lee Bardugo. It's one of my friend's favorite books. It's like fantasy, dark academia. And let's talk about it. Our main character is Alex. Her real name is Galaxy. And she is at Yale under very odd circumstances. She didn't graduate high school, I think. And she basically was plucked from a murder scene and told by this mysterious person that she could work for him at Yale doing very specific things, and he would make all her legal problems and financial problems go away. So of course she takes him up on it because she was basically a drug addict living on the streets / in gross motels before this happened. So there's a lot of time jumps over a year. So you're in the same year, but you go back and forth in this year. And Alex is trying to figure out different like crimes in different time periods. She has a best friend named Darlington who also works for this mysterious guy. This guy, it's about the secret societies at Yale, which, whatever, they are what they are. I'm not gonna get I feel like I'm so jaded because I'm 42 that I'm like, okay, there's a bunch of like 21-year-olds running around doing whatever. All right, fine. Do what you will. But in one of the timelines, Alex is looking for Darlington, who is missing, and trying to figure out kind of like how to get him back. There's a lot of magic in this, and the magic is very scientific, which is why I think one of my friends loves this book very much because she's a doctor. There is some rough sexual assault in this book, which I was warned about, but I was still like, oh God. And then there's some rough revenge stuff for the sexual assault. And those plot lines sort of tainted the book for me. There's one specific one in which Alex is helping someone get revenge on someone who assaulted them. And I really didn't like how that went and how that friend reacted to the revenge because I thought it was very unrealistic. And so far be it for me to tell someone how to react to their assault, but I didn't like how it played out. I'm not going to finish this series. I know that Hellbent is out, and I know that the third one, which is the final book, is coming out, but I just didn't really like it. It reminded me a little bit of Catherine House, which was another dark academia I didn't love. I feel like dark academia is really interesting for me. I either love it or I'm like, this isn't for me. Like If We Were Villains, loved that book. Sea of Lost Girls, Lake of Dead Languages, both by Carol Goodman, loved those books. Secret History I might pick back up, but loved the first 100 pages and got a little tedious in the middle. So this book wasn't for me. It's for a lot of people. A lot of people love it. A lot of people's favorite books. Just not mine. All right, the last book I read, I finished on August 31st. So this is the literal last book I read over Labor Day weekend. And it was The Favorites by Elaine Fargo. I did not know that this was a Wuthering Heights retelling when I bought it. And I didn't realize it till I was about 100 pages in. And then I was like, the main characters are named Kat and Heath, which is like Catherine and Heathcliff. And then I like pulled up reviews, and the first review was like, as a Wuthering Heights retelling. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't realize this. So it's like toxic childhood lovers and pairs, figure skating, dancing, what's it called? Ice dancing and Olympics. And there's Kat and Heath, not Heathcliff, who have this weird relationship like they do in Wuthering Heights, in which Kat's father adopted Heath before he died, and Kat has an awful older brother, and they live in this falling down mansion, but they have no money. And then Heath and Kat are really good ice dancing partners, and they get kind of like adopted by this woman, Sheila Lynn, who's like a great ice dancer who won gold. And she has twin children named Bella and Garrett, who are each other's partners. And then you go from there. This book goes over 30 years, I think, probably in the end. Maybe not 30, 20 years, probably 20 years in the end, where you're just following Kat and Heath's extremely toxic, sometimes crazy relationship, and then how Bella and Garrett, the other twins who are good, kind of play into it. And I can't remember the names of those characters in Wuthering Heights, but it's those siblings that live nearby, and one of them ends up marrying Catherine and one of them ends up marrying Heathcliff. That doesn't happen in this book though. I liked this book, but I thought it could have been 100 pages shorter. It's kind of like if Wuthering Heights met Carrie Soto's back, but like there was almost too much in it. There were too many Olympics. There were too many world championships. I would have liked it if it was a little bit more condensed. I understand why the plot beats followed the way they did, because they kind of followed the plot beats of Wuthering Heights, but I think it would have been a little bit more enjoyable if we didn't follow all the plot beats of Wuthering Heights and maybe like pared it back a little bit, and definitely didn't visit as many world championships and as many Olympics as we did. I'm saying that there are probably people who loved that part of the book. I'm not really into ice dancing. I don't know anything about it. And so that just made it a little bit like it would drag for me a little bit. I skimmed a little bit in the middle when we were at another championship. There was another ice dance described because that part wasn't for me. But I liked it. I thought it was an enjoyable read. We did it! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 books. That's not bad for 2 months. I might have read 7 a month. I don't remember if I did like 6 and 8 or 7 and 7. I think I did 7 and 7. Let's talk about the best book I read in these 2 months. None of those. We are going to give it to, it's going to be a tie. Because one of them's kind of a weird one to say. These two. Dreamwork by Mary Oliver and Summer of 69 by Ellen Hogebrand. These are both just great books. Great read. Great read. So good. So enjoyable. If you haven't read this one and you like to read an Ellen Hogebrand every summer, put it on your TBR for next June, my dear. And most beautiful book of poetry I've ever read. So I have to give it that one. Now, what did you read in July and August? I'm finally getting back after not posting for a very long time. I'll be back on like my normal post schedule. But I'd love to hear what your favorite books were that you basically read this summer, because I haven't been around since like the first week of July. So what was great? What was terrible? Hey, did you read this and did you like this? Because I always feel guilty when I DNF a book of the month because it's a hardcover. Ah! Do you love Emily Henry and heartily disagree with me? And do you dislike Annabelle Monaghan? Maybe. Most of all, did you read this? Because I'd love to talk about this with somebody. I don't know anybody else who's going to read it. Okay. If you've made it this far in the video and you don't want to write words, please give me a sunshine emoji, because summer's over now. We're having unseasonably cool weather, so it feels very like end of September here instead of beginning of September. Usually it's still really hot here now, but it's not. It's been like high of 70 all week. So let's take a sunshine for one last time. And as always, I hope you're in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. I'll see you soon.